Now we're
Now,
recording.
now we're recorded. Very good.
Look, the Mishnah on Pei Aleph Amud Aleph. This is a din that we've come across a number of times over the last couple of prakim. Hakoyne shnei ilonis b'seif sadach avere hazel hareze loy kana karka. Someone who purchases two trees. Reuven buys from Shimon two trees. He doesn't get any karka. He doesn't get the karka along with the trees. We've seen this a bunch of times. When you buy three trees, you're buying a mini orchard. So it comes with the karka together with it. The Rashbam had explained previously. What does it mean that the karka comes along with it? And he really explains it over here. That means and the Gemara is going to say this, that's going to be the conclusion of the Gemara, that if the tree dies, if the karka is kani together with it, then he could replant the tree. So the minimum for that is three. But if you do two, he wasn't kind of karka. Rameir I'm a kind of karka. Rameir says no. Even with just two, he's kind of karka. And we're going to see from the Gemara that Rameir is masking that one, you're not kind of karka. It's not saying that anytime you buy a tree. He's saying even two is enough that you kind of the karka together with the area, like we can see on the bottom of the Gemara, it's kind of the area with it. Higdilu, if the tree branched out, literally, it spread out a little bit. That means Reuven purchased two trees from Shimon, and according to Tanakami, he owns a little bit of the land. Lo Yishapa. The Shimon, who is the seller, cannot say, "Oh, your tree that grew out over my land, this tree that I sold you, it's gonna kill, it's gonna shade over my fields, so I want to cut it back." He's not allowed to do so. So it's a little bit of a counterintuitive svara, which the Rashbam explains. Higdilu, zok the Rashbam, hechivu ha'anofim harbe, the trees that were purchased. Reuven bought from Shimon the two trees, and he got some karka with it. They grew out. Lo yishapa, lo yiksus oisim bala karka. And this is going to be again the Gemara later. The bala karka, meaning Shimon, who is the seller of the trees and the owner of the field, he can't cut back the trees that are spreading over his field. Even though the shade from the trees is harming his fields. Since the person who bought the karka, we're going to the Tanakama. It says you don't get karka along with the trees. So since he didn't get any karka, the seller, the Baal HaKarka, said, "Listen, I'm keeping the karka. I'm only selling you two trees. That doesn't entitle you to karka, and therefore I'm keeping the karka. But he has to, in some way, to make up for the fact that he's not providing any karka to the Bala Ilan, he has to allow him the usage underneath it. So, therefore, that also is mishabed the Bala Karka, that he can't now cut back the tree, the branches of the tree that are damaging his ground, because that's an extension of what he was mishabed to this purchaser of the tree. So it's counterintuitive. We're saying, had the Balhak, if the owner of the tree had gotten karka, then his limit would be whatever he's entitled to from the tree, and that's it. That means, as we're going to see later on, it's the amount of space that he needs to be able to work on his tree. But that's the end of it. If his tree grows, he doesn't get any more. But in this case, since what the owner of the tree got was not actual land, but he just got a right to work with his tree, so that right can expand together with the trees. And therefore the Baal HaKarka is not entitled to cut back the tree. So continuing with the Mishnah, whatever grows from the trunk belongs to the person who purchased the trees. What goes from the roots, if there's shoots from the tree that grow out of its roots, that belongs to the Bala Karka. The owner of the tree only bought the tree, didn't buy any karka, so he also doesn't get what comes out of the shroshim which are in the karka. The Mesu and Karka. And finally, this is what the Rashbam has been saying throughout the last couple of prakim, because the person who bought the trees only bought 2 trees, it's not enough to get the rights to the karka. If it dies, he doesn't have karka he's not allowed to replant the tree. The Mishnah continues, Kana Shloisha, but if he bought 3, then in that case, even the Tanakama is maskum to a mayor, Kana karka, he gets the karka, Higdilu Yeshapa. In this case, like we said, it'll be the other way around. Since he got karka, since the person who bought the tree gets actual karka, he doesn't get a right. He doesn't get the right to grow, to take care of his tree wherever it is. And therefore it grows, he's not allowed to go and intrude on someone else's karka. If he hadn't gotten karka, then along with that comes the right for his tree to shade over the other person's karka, and that will extend however big the tree is. But if he bought a tree together with its karka, then all he owns is that tree together with the karka. Once the tree starts expanding, he doesn't get extra karka, and therefore the owner of the karka, like anyone else, if Reuven and Shimon are on 2 sides, have adjoining properties, and Reuven has a tree that goes over into Shimon's property and starts damaging, it shades over Shimon's fields, Shimon has a right to cut it down. I guess this will be relevant for those of us who have sukkahs, have a sukkah in their backyard in Flatbush, and the neighbor's tree is shading over it. They could point to this Mishnah and say, you can't have your shade this damaging my property. But it doesn't say that you can tell him you have to go cut it down. It says that you can cut it down yourself. To continue with the Mishnah, again, since we're saying if it's 3, he gets the karkas, then he doesn't just get the shoots that come out of the trunk, but he also gets the shoots that come out of the ground. And if the tree should die, the owner of the trees, since he also got karka, that means that he's allowed to replant the tree. Someone who purchased 2 ilanis in his friend's property. Maybe ve'ena kaira. We're talking about the din of bikurim. Din of bikurim, the pasuk says, well, we're not going to read all the psukim right now, but the general rule is that the first fruit that grow, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim, bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, and give it to the Kohen. And there's a certain kriya. There's a kriya that you say if you got it to but in any case, there's a kriya that you're supposed to say. We'll see it on Amud Beis. So the Mishnah says, the Mishnah says, someone who buys 2 trees, so he doesn't get the karka with it. He brings the bikurim. He still has the din bikurim, but he doesn't do the kriya. The Gemara is going to say later on, because it doesn't satisfy the psukim. The psukim say asher nusata, the psukim say asher ad moscha, asher tavi me'atzecha. This is all indications that you have to do this kriya when it's your land, but not when it's growing on someone else's land. So 2 ilanis, the purchaser of the 2 ilanis doesn't get any land, so he's not qualified to make the kriya of bikurim, because he doesn't own the land that the fruit came from. Rameya says no. He brings the bikurim, and he also says the kriya. Amar of Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Mechayev Rameya afbel ekech peris min hashuk, or the way the Bach says mina ilan. He says even if you buy peris, and it's someone buys peris straight from the tree, and they're the first fruit to grow, you still have to bring bikurim, and you still have to make the kriya. He says it's not just in this case where there was 2 trees. That's Shmuel's pshat. That's what he understood Rameya. Rameya was saying a general rule that if there's 2 trees, even if it doesn't have to be even from 2 trees, even if you buy it the way the Gemara is lashon from a fruit stand, or if you buy it directly from the tree, you still have to, you may be v'kaira. Where does he get that from? The pasha of it is that Rameya was just being chaylik and saying in the case of 2 trees, which would go very well with our Mishnah, that our Mishnah said that if you have 2 trees, you get karka. So that would be a very straightforward explanation. We're making that Rameh is saying a whole Chiddush in Bikurim, not that he's saying the same thing that we saw in our Mishnah, that whenever you have two trees, whenever someone buys two trees, he gets karka with it. So I mean, so where does he get it from? Where does Shmuel get it from? The Tani Mishnah Yisera. Why do we have to say this Mishnah? Michli Tanale Diyesh Karka, Pshita Demeva B'Kaira. He says this whole Mishnah to tell me that Reb Meir says that by two trees you have your Mevi V'Kaira. It's not a Chiddush. Our Mishnah already said that you get, when you buy two trees, you get the karka. There's no reason why someone who owns two trees with the karka shouldn't have to be Mevi V'Kaira. He owns the trees together with the karka. He's not missing anything. So it must be telling you even more that it's not just because he gets the karka. It was saying even without the fact that he gets the karka, even if it's a general rule that you always get the, you always have to be Mevi V'Kaira. How can Rameya say that you're maybe B'Kaira, that you say the Kriya of Bikurim, even on something that you bought, fruit that you bought in the marketplace, but the Torah says that you bring from your land. He didn't bring it from his land, he bought it in the fruit store. So doesn't mean to exclude that if you bought it, it's coming to exclude if it came from Argentina. If you buy a fruit in Argentina, or it came from Syria, you don't have to bring Bikurim. In fact, there's another pasuk that also indicates it has to be from his land. That's coming to tell you if a guy owns land in Eretz Yisrael and he has fruit growing in it and you buy the fruit, there's no din Bikurim on that as well. The Gemara brings the third pasuk. Asher nasatili, that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave to you. What the Rebbeinu Shalom gave to you means what he gave to you from the land. So the Gemara, no, the Yavile Zuzi v'Savni Bahu. All it's coming to tell you means that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to you by giving you the money that you could buy it, but doesn't indicate. So Einachanam Meir holds that all these psukim are telling you different things, but he doesn't hold that you have to own the land in order to be kaira. Masav Rabba, correct Rabba the Shaila. Hakoila Ina. But the Rabba has a better kasha. Hakoila Ilan Echad. Someone who buys one tree in his chava's land, maybe ve'ena kaira. He's maybe ve'ena kaira. L'fishalei kana karka. Divri Reb Meir. Reb Meir says this whole din. He's making over here. Reb Meir is being very explicit. He's saying that din that I said before in the Mishnah, that if you buy on two trees, you're not kaira. You are. I'm sorry. You are kaira. That's because it's two trees, and I hold that two trees you are kaina. You do get karka. But he's saying over here by one tree, and certainly if you get it from a shuk, you're not going to be kind of. So this is shver on Shmuel. The Gemara Tiyufta Einachanami, Shmuel's theory that Rameir that he said that why would Rameir say the same din in the Mishnah if he's saying just that two trees is considered to be you get karka because it's considered to be like an orchard, you get karka with it, and that's why you may be v'kaira. And he's just repeating that halacha legabi the din the bikurim that you also may be v'kaira, because he says specifically that if it was only one tree you would not be kaira. Amalei Rav Shimon el Yakum l'Reb Elazar. My time of the Rameya ilan echad, or my time of the Rabbanon b'shnei ilanos. They asked him, what is the reasoning that you bring bikurim without a kriya? It's a stira. The pasuk says ad mascha, it says asher nasata, it says artzecha. So it seems to be excluding something that's not your fruit that comes not from your land, not just from a kriya. It's excluding from bikurim altogether. So where do you get, according to Rameir, by one tree, and according to Chachamim, Tanakamu or Chalik Rameir, even by two trees where you don't have karka? Why would we say that there's a din of maybe ve'ena kaira? It should be either ena maybe ve'ena kaira or maybe ve'kaira, one or the other. Why split it? Amar loy. So Rabbi Elazar said back to him, why are you asking me something that it's been discussed forever and they didn't. There's no explanation given. And now you're asking me to embarrass me in the base medrash. This is an old chestnut that everyone knows there's no answer to. So why are you doing this to me? Amar Rabba said, I don't know why Rabbi Elazar was so defensive about it. My kusha, what's the question? Dilma Rameya bi'ilin echad svuki mesafkale. V'Rabbana b'shnei ilana svuki mesafkale. Maybe the explanation of why it's maybe in a kaira, according to the Chachamim on one tree, I'm sorry, according to Rameir on one tree and according to Rabbana by two trees, is because Rameir holds two trees, you're certainly kind of karka. But he's mesupik by one tree, and the Chacham hold by three trees, you're certainly kind of karka, but the mesupik if you're kind of karka by two trees. So that's the reason why they say maybe ve'ena kaira. You have to bring, because it might be bikurim, but you can't be kaira because that would be wrong, it would be incorrect. So how could you say that Remeir is Misafkale? We just quoted that price. We said the Gabi one tree, we just brought that to slug up Shmuel's Pshat, who brought this brisa, and it said he said the reason is Shaloi Kana Karka, he wasn't kind of the Karka. That's the reason why it's maybe Ve'ena Karka. It doesn't sound like a suffix. So you want to know, Aim Hashem Loi Kana Karka. It must be that what Remeir was saying over there was not Loi Kana Karka. What he means to say is maybe it's not kind of Karka. Correct the Gemara. So what are you saying? So you're saying that's the reason why it's maybe Ve'ena Karka, because it's suffix. Let's say it's not bikurim. What if it's a suffix, right? We're not sure if it's karka. If it's not karka, then it's not bikurim at all. Right? Because that's our supposition. We don't see any reason. If it's karka, we said if it is karka, if he owns the karka, then it should be bikurim and he should be kaira. If it's not his karka, then it's not bikurim at all. And not just that he's not kaira. The only reason why he's bringing it as bikurim is misafik. Fact the Gemara. But how could you say you bring the bikurim and you're not kaira because of a suffix? Maybe dilmala bikurim and overcome ayachul lazara. You're bringing something that's chulun lazara. So this is a machlokes. It's two stadim actually brought in the Rashbam. We know that there's a din if someone brings a cow into the Beis Hamikdash, if that cow was not hukdash as a carbon, he's being gaiver on a lav. The Torah says, we learned that we've seen this before, that you're not allowed to bring something that's roy to be brought as a carbon if it's not hukdash as a carbon. You can't just bring a cow and shecht it for chulin. It's awesome. So the question over here is this issue, is the problem that we're talking about over here, bringing bikurim into the Beis Hamikdash? Bikurim is not a carbon. Bikurim is just brought into the Beis Hamikdash. Even though we talk about bringing to the Beis Hamikdash, it's brought to the Beis Hamikdash, then given to a kohen. There's no avoida except for you pick it up and you make a kriya. There's no avoida on the mizbech or anything like that. But one suggestion is that it's included in that same Issa Deraisa, just like you can't bring an animal that could be brought as a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash. You can't bring fruits that could theoretically have been brought as a bikurim. You can't bring it into the Beis Hamikdash, or else it's a takanas hachamim. We don't want people bringing things that are not bikurim. That as bikurim will be a mix-up. People will say if they see that they're not giving it to the kohen, or they're not being kaira. Let's say they're not doing the kriya. It's going to mislead people. So for the Gemara, if we're saying now it's a suffix of what's bikurim, you shouldn't be able to bring it into the Beis Hamikdash. So why are you saying maybe ve'ena kaira? It should be eina maybe ve'ena kaira. So Gemara, the makdish lahu. The Rashbam explains we're talking about where he was makdish these pairs. He says I'm being makdish it I want to give it as to bed the kabayis, but al tnai. It means if it's bikurim, then it should remain bikurim. If it's not bikurim, I want it to become kaddish. So either way, it's allowed to be brought into the Beis Hamikdash, either as kasher or bikurim, or if not as bikurim, it's being brought for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. Preklimar of a boy mechlinu, but the kahanim have to eat it. The din of bikurim has to be eaten by the kahanim. So how could he be makdish it al tonight? The kahanim are going to be stuck. They're not going to know if they could eat it or not. So Gemara the Paraklu, we're talking about he was paida. He brought it as hegdish, and then he says, I assume it means that he's paid it with a t'nai. Because always you're back to square one. If you paid it, then again it's chulin, and you wouldn't be allowed to bring it into the mikdash. So it must be that he's paid it with a t'nai that if it's bikurim, that I want to be paid it. I don't want the hekdesh to take effect. Even though I guess the hekdesh didn't take effect. He's saying if it wasn't bikurim, so the hekdesh took effect. I said I'm a little unclear about this. So why doesn't it then return? Maybe he's after he brings it into the Beis Hamikdash, the kohen takes it out. I don't think the kohen has to eat the bikurim in the Beis Hamikdash. He brings it to the Beis Hamikdash. He gives it to the kohen. The kohen takes it out, and then he's paid the half the potential hekdesh. So now that part, it's either now chulin, and then he takes the money and he uses it for bedek habayis, or if it's bikurim, the kohen eats it. Frak to Gemara, we have another problem. Maybe it's not bikurim. We have a different problem that, in general, the rule is that bikurim has no din that trumas and maisos have to be taken off, right? There's a whole long list. Everything that's grown in Eretz Yisrael, you have to take off trumas and maisos, but something that's grown as bikurim is excluded. But this complicated peri that came, let's say, according to a mayor from a land, a karka with one tree on it. So he's mesupik about whether it has the karka was brought along with the tree, and therefore he's not sure if it has a din bikurim. So we're saying we do it misafik. He does a t'nai and he's makdash it and he brings it as bikurim, but on the tzad that it's not bikurim, it's mechuy. You have to take off trumas and maisos from those fruit. But let's say a person had 100 apples, and he said, "I'm taking 50. You can take whatever amount for bikurim." He said, "I'm taking 50 of these 100 apples as bikurim." So, and these bikurim are a suffix of whether they're bikurim or not. So, normally he'd have to take off 10. If he'd not separated these, if these 50 are bikurim, then he only has to take off 5 for Meiser Rishon, and he only has to take off 5 out of 50, 10% for Meiser Sheni, and he has to do whatever 1/40th for Truma. That's more variable. But in any case, if it's not Truma, then he has to take off twice as much. And he hasn't taken off because we said he brings it as bikurim. L'chari is not separating trumas and mice from it. So tomorrow the mafresh luhu. We're talking about where he's smart. He understands what is required of him, and he is mafresh even from this suffix bikurim. So tomorrow bitshlam truma gedayla. So the truma gedayla, the truma that we always talk about, that we said you give it 1/40th if it's buying Yafa or 1/60th ba'ayin ra, Yav l'kayin. So he has no problem. He brings it to Yerushalayim, and he gives from this, including the part that's from the bikurim, he gives it to the kayin. Either way, the kayin's going to eat it. He's going to eat the bikurim, and he's going to eat the truma. So everything's good. Ma'aser sheni nami Yav l'kayin. Ma'aser sheni also, he gives it to a kayin, and he says, "I'm in the Beis Hamikdash. Here's the 50 apples. And in addition, I'm giving you from the 50 apples, I'm giving you 5 of them as true Meiser Sheni, and please eat them in Yerushalayim as a din of Meiser Sheni." So it's either bikurim or it's Meiser Sheni. Meiser Ani Nami Yav Leila Kayin Ani. He has an eitzah. He'll find a kayin who's an ani. So it could be yaitza giving the bikurim to a kayin as well as giving the Meiser Ani to an ani. Ela Meiser Rishon the Levi who Laman Yovle. What about the Meiser Levi? The Meiser Levi has to give to a Levi, and the Bikurim has to give to a Kayin, so he's stuck. If he gives it to a Levi, then he's taking away from the Kain's Bikurim. If he gives it to the Kain, he's taking away from the Levi's Meiser Rishon. So tomorrow del Yovle the Kain. No, he gives it to a Kain. Kriveloza ben Azariah. Behold, like Kriveloza ben Azariah. Betanya. We had this. Where did we have this? It says over here, back in Yavamas and in Subas. He's the man who says, "Shuma gedayla l'kayin, Meiser Rishon l'levi divrei Rebbe Kiva." Rebbe Kiva says that Truma Gedola, that we know goes to a Kain, and Meiser Rishon goes to a Levi. That's the Mikra Din. That's what the Torah says. Belazar ben Azariah, I mean Meiser Rishon l'Kain. We take out the Af. He says that there's a takana because of the Leviim b'Shasti Ezra. He was the Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says Kehanim are also Leviim, even though no one ever wants to give us the second Aliyah, but we really are technically us Kehanim are also Leviim, and that's what Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says. Therefore, they're also able to get Meiser Rishon, and he says not only are they able to get it, but there was a takana against Leviim because some misdeeds that they did b'Shas Ezra that they couldn't get Meiser Rishon anymore. So that's why it's not a problem. You give this Suffolk Bikurim, Suffolk Meiser Rishon to a Kain. Now the Gemara asks the general question. So what are you doing here? You're saying that it's a suffix. We don't know if it's Bikurim or Meiser. But still, you haven't really answered the basic question that we asked. If it's Bikurim, why are you not doing Kriya? And if it's not Bikurim, you shouldn't. So we said it's a suffix. So the Dilma Bikurim, the Nubo Kriya, how are you Yaitza without the Kriya? The Torah says you're supposed to do a Kriya. So saying that it's a suffix, what are we helping things by saying don't do the Kriya, but you're not going to be Yaitza? The Torah said you have to do Kriya. So Akamar Kriya loy ma'akva. Kriya is not ma'akav. So Akamar v'loy, v'amar v'zera, kol roya, l'bila, ein bila ma'keves, she'ein roya l'bila, bila ma'keves. This is a cloud we find throughout Shas, that it says that if you have a pot, a clay sharis that is not big enough to hold the amount of a mincha, to mix the amount of a mincha, even though mixing is not required, but since it's not royal bila, since it's not capable of bila, since you can't mix in it, that makes the bila it makes the bila ma'akev. That means you have to be able to do it even though it's not ma'akev. So the same thing over here. Even though the kriya itself is not ma'akev, the ability to be kaira is ma'akev, and he's not able to be kaira because it might not be bikurim. So the Gemara, the Gemara says he does like Rabbi Yosef bar Chani. There is a way to exclude this suffix bikurim from the requirement of kriya. The Amar. If someone took the bikurim and sent them in the hand of a shliach, or the Rashbam is very clear, this is the second shot, the second case, or he gave it to a shliach and the shliach died on the way, and then he told the shliach to separate the bikurim. The shliach went and took the bikurim and was taking it to Yerushalayim, which would have been fine, but then the shliach died before he could finish his task. Maybe they ain't a kaira. In all these cases, there's no din of kriya. My time you have to have the same person both taking the bikurim, both the separate, harvesting the bikurim, and then bringing it. So in both of these cases that we mentioned, it was a different person. In one case, he sent a shliach, he collected the bikurim and sent a shliach. In the second case, he had a shliach collect the bikurim, but then the shliach wasn't able to finish it. So a second person, either he or a different person, had to bring it. So in any of those cases, the Torah has excluded. The Torah says there's no kriya is not possible in such a case. So it's not that kriya is not. We're not saying that kriya is impossible. The Torah specifically excluded that there's no kriya in that case. So we're suggesting let him separate this person who has a suffix. He bought one tree, so he's not sure if he has to he has to separate bikurim. But if he's not able to do a kriya because the kriya would be could possibly be false. So therefore, he's any roy kriya, and therefore it should passel, even though kriya is not only akav. We're saying what he has to do is he separates the lekicha from the avah. He'll collect the fruit and then give it over to a shliach, and because of that, then that's the reason why there'll be no kriya. Once there's a affirmative reason, there's a assertive reason not to do kriya, that's not, you don't have the din she'ein bila ma'keves or she'ein, that there's no kriya here. That's not, kriya is not possible. It's that the Torah said that there's no kriya. Frak the Gemara, Amalei Rav Acha Breder Rav Avila Rav Ashi Michti Sukininu Likri. He has a very good question. What do you make such a big fuss about this? We're saying he shouldn't read he can't do the Kriya because it's inaccurate, because he doesn't, it's not Atzecha, it's not Nashanosati, it's not Atmoscha. What is a Kriya? Kriya is reading these psukim that are in the Torah. Let him go and say, listen, I'm reading a pasuk, and either it will be the Kriya for Bikurim, or else I'm just learning. I'm reading a pasuk in Chumash. Zakhamar, no. Amalei mishum de mechzi kashikra. It will look like he's saying something false. He's saying, I bring something that's Bikurim, but it's not really Bikurim. So we don't want someone to do that. It's a more concrete problem that, we said that he's going to separate Trumas and Maisis. But if he brings it and he reads, then he's going to come to say, oh, this is real Truma, even though it's only from one tree that I bought and it's no karka, but I'm doing a Kriya, or someone will see him redoing a Kriya, they'll say, oh, he doesn't have to separate Trumas and Maisis, but he really does, because it's a suffix that maybe it's not Bikurim. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll learn tomorrow at 8:30.